There is a mental health crisis. Lots of other health problems are getting better, but mental health is getting worse. Why? Our science is better than ever. What is it that's going on? Today, we're going to break that down into three main problems and three main solutions. My name is Sean. I'm a mental health coach. I see over 40 clients a week, and I help them get results like these. I didn't know how to build relationships prior to coaching, and now every trip I go on, I come out with new friends. Or coaching helped me find comfort in who I am. The constant internal conflict I had before is now pretty much gone. So let's dive in. So the first problem is the monopolization of mental health. Basically, if you have some sort of physical problem, there are all sorts of solutions. You can go to a doctor, you can go to a physical therapist, you can get a personal trainer. There's all sorts of different things that you can do for your physical health. But when it comes to your mental health, if you talk to somebody about your mental health and say that, you're looking for help, they're always going to recommend a therapist. And this does a few things. The first is that it creates this sort of one-size-fits-all approach. So what I hear from a lot of people that I work with is that therapy just didn't work for them. Like therapy didn't feel right for them. And if that's the case, and there's no other solutions that are often talked about, then you're sort of SOL. The second thing that it does is that it creates a strain on supply. So because the only solution for the mental health crisis that is being presented to people is therapy, what ends up happening is that therapists are trying to carry the entire mental health crisis on their back. And so they are burnt out, overworked, there's not enough of them. I talk to clients all the time that they have waited weeks, months, years to get into therapy. It's crazy. And the last problem is that therapists are aging out. So the average age of a therapist in the US is 41 years old, which means that when the cool hip kids come in talking about Riz and content creation and streaming, therapists have no idea what they're talking about. And therefore, it is harder for the client to feel connected and safe with their therapist. So before I got into coaching, I actually thought that coaching was just sort of for lazy therapists. It was people that didn't want to go to college. And so instead, they decided that they would just call themselves a coach and be good with that. And now I realize how harmful that mentality actually is, because it actually perpetuates this idea of the monopolization of mental health, that the only way to help with mental health is therapy. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that there's anything wrong with therapy. I think that it is great if you want to go see a therapist and try that out. I just don't think that it should be the only solution, because like in community, in business, in genetics, it's all the same. Diversity is super important. And so if we only have one solution, it causes problems. The second problem that I see is what therapy was developed for. And again, this is something that I hear all the time from people that I work with, which is that when they work with a therapist, oftentimes they'll actually just sort of get dismissed. Like they will go into therapy for help and they'll have a few sessions and they will still be feeling lots of hurt. They will still be suffering a lot. And the therapist will say, well, it seems like we're all good here. And they will take them off of their schedule. And the reason that I understand why therapists do this, I don't think it's because they're bad therapists. I think it's because of the way that therapy was originated, which is that originally therapy was to help people function in society. And so it was not about fulfillment and happiness. It was about getting people to a functional level. And once they were to a functional level, peace out. There are definitely therapists that go above and beyond within this system, but I think that they are, unfortunately, the exception to the rule. And the third problem is the system. And what I mean by the system is that therapists are trained in pathology. They are trained to treat mental illness. And even to be seen by a therapist using insurance in the US, therapists have to diagnose you with something, which is a huge, huge problem. Let me use an analogy to sort of illustrate why this is so problematic. When you were a kid and you had to do research papers in school, did you ever write the paper and then sort of find the facts to support it afterward? Don't worry if you did, you're not in trouble. I did the exact same thing. And we were kids, so it was sort of fine. But the problem is that the problem with this approach in general is something called confirmation bias, which is that when you have a predetermined idea in mind and you move forward looking for an answer, your mind is going to naturally try to find answers that fit that predetermined idea. And so, like I said, as a kid, it's totally fine. But as a therapist, it is a huge problem, because if therapists have to diagnose in order to treat a patient, that means that they are going to be looking for something regardless of if it is there or not. And so often I have clients that come in and talk to me about all these insane numbers of diagnoses that they have because they've been to a bunch of different doctors, therapists, psychiatrists, etc., that have all diagnosed them with different things. They just keep adding it to the pile. And then because they keep getting all these diagnoses, they also keep getting all of these medications to treat those diagnoses. And those medications cause problems that other medications have to come in to fix. And so then you get on more medications. And it is just a huge, huge mess of a system. So with this very bleak picture that I have painted, what do we do about it? How do I get help if I'm really struggling with my mental health? Well, the good news is that with each of these problems, we can kind of reverse engineer. So for the first problem, we can start to diversify our sources for mental health. So a lot of people get an incredible amount of fulfillment and support from their friends, family, loved ones, etc. There are also spiritual leaders, so people like rabbis, gurus, shamans, that can often provide a lot of guidance. Some people like to go through the journey on their own with things like journaling or meditation. And some people, like the 40 plus clients a week that I work with, like to do coaching, and that seems to help them a lot. For the second problem of therapy was not designed for fulfillment and happiness, it was designed for function. I think that the very simple solution to that is fulfillment design. Start to think about what you would like your life to look like. What would be a fulfilling life for you? What are the things that really hold you back from having that fulfilling life? And in intentionally crafting that life with help mentioned in the first things, it can really help you to feel more fulfilled and happy in your life. And finally, the last thing is to take charge of the system, not let the system run you. And so if you are feeling dissatisfied with the care that you are receiving, you should say something to your providers. And one of two things will happen in that situation. The first is that they will start to address the problems that you bring up, in which case, great, your problems are addressed. The reason that I say this is because a lot of people that I work with, I actually very actively encourage them to talk to their providers, whether it's a doctor, a therapist, psychiatrist, whatever, because they feel sort of like a slave to the system, where they just have to say, yes, sir, and go along with whatever somebody says. And that is not the case at all. Ultimately, you are the person paying for this service. And so you are able to dictate how this goes. Okay, so either they will adjust or they will dismiss you. And if they dismiss you, that is a really great indication that you should get out and find somebody else. I work with so many people that have been stuck in relationships, professional relationships like this for years, and they just tolerate it. And instead, this speeds up the process. Either they adjust or they don't, and you move on. And hey, my goal is to help to address this mental health crisis, to do my little bit to do that. And so in that way, just like I was talking about, give feedback to the people that you are working with, I would really, really appreciate it. There's a link down in the description for a survey where you can just let me know what was helpful, what was unhelpful, and what kind of stuff you would like to see in the future so that I can more specifically address your needs. The final thing is in this idea of how we start to address things like hopelessness, feeling lost, feeling depressed, all this stuff. There's a video that will pop up either right here or it'll be in the description depending on where you're watching. And it goes over sort of how I approach that sort of thing with clients that I work with that seems to have really good outcomes. Check it out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you, and I'll see you later. Bye.